Welcome to Study Loop.
This problem has a lot of parts to it, so let's try to go through step by step and not leave anything out. So what do we need to do? We need to illustrate the effect of a tax on the purchase of socks. We need to show how that's going to change the price and quantity in the market. Okay? Let's draw our demand curve, and let's draw a supply curve. Okay. So we start off with a price about here and a quantity about here. All right, now let's impose a tax. We have a new quantity and new prices. Okay, that vertical green line is just the amount of the tax. All right, so we see that the quantity has decreased and the price has increased by the amount of the tax. Now we have to identify the areas before and after the imposition of the tax. Total spending by consumers. Let's do that first. Total spending by consumers was previously Q times P, right? So it was our original Q star, we'll call it, and P star. Those were the original price and quantity, all right? Now, what is the new price and quantity? Well, it's going to be our quantity with the tax and the price paid by consumers with the tax. So now the new amount paid by consumers, the total spending by consumers, is going to be that QT times PT. Now before, as far as the producers go, they also received P star times Q star, but now what do they receive? QT times, we'll call it PS for supply, QT times PS. The reason for that is because they don't receive what consumers are paying because consumers are paying the producer and the tax. All right. So now you see there's a big difference between what the consumer is actually paying and what the producer is actually receiving. All right. So that's total spending by consumers and total revenue for producers. What about government tax revenue? Well, government tax revenue is going to be the amount of the tax, this vertical distance here, basically the distance between what a consumer pays and what a producer receives, and the quantity paid. Excuse me, the quantity exchanged, so QT. All right, so it will be the amount of the tax times the quantity exchanged at that tax. For the next part, it asks, does the price received by producers rise or fall? Well, the price received by producers is going to fall, right? We see that from the drop from P star to PS. Can you tell whether total receipts for producers rise or fall? Well, they're absolutely going to fall because you're just moving downwards along the supply curve. Okay. So now, does the price paid by consumers rise or fall? The price paid by consumers absolutely rises. Can you tell whether total spending by consumers rises or falls? This is a tricky one because it depends on whether or not demand is elastic or inelastic. Now here you can see it's roughly unit elastic. Okay, in other words, it has roughly a 45-degree downward slope. So the same percentage change in quantity as the happens at a percentage change in price. But if it's inelastic, that means that consumers will continue to pay an increased price for roughly the same quantity. If it's elastic, the reverse is true. A small change in price will cause a large change in quantity. So if you impose a tax when demand is elastic, the total spending by consumers falls. If you impose a tax when consumer demand is inelastic, the total spending by consumers rises.